On Tyranny, 20 Lessons from the 20th Century by Timothy Snyder is a compact yet powerful book that explores the dangers of authoritarianism and offers practical guidance for resisting it, drawing lessons from 20th century European history. Published in 2017, it analyzes the fragility of democracy in the context of modern political challenges, particularly in the United States. In this video, we'll provide a comprehensive and precise summary of the book, unpacking its key ideas, arguments, and lessons so thoroughly that you'll grasp its full essence without needing to read the original text. Imagine standing at the edge of a crumbling cliff, the ground beneath your feet trembling as history whispers warnings from a century ago. This is the vivid urgency Timothy Snyder channels in On Tyranny, a book that feels less like a history lesson and more like a survival guide for a world teetering on the brink. Written in the wake of the 2016 U.S. presidential election, Snyder, a Yale historian specializing in 20th century Europe, doesn't just analyze the past. He uses it to shine a spotlight on the present. His core message is chilling yet empowering. We are no wiser than the Europeans who saw democracy yield to fascism, Nazism, or communism. Our one advantage is that we might learn from their experience. This sets the stage for a book that's both a wake-up call and a blueprint for action, distilled into 20 concise lessons that urge us to protect democracy before it slips away. Snyder begins with a stark truth. Democracy is fragile, and history shows it can collapse faster than we think. He reminds us that the Founding Fathers, wary of the tyranny that overcame ancient democracy, built safeguards into the American system, checks and balances, the rule of law. But these aren't foolproof. The mistake, Snyder writes, is to assume that rulers who came to power through institutions cannot change or destroy those very institutions, even when that is exactly what they have announced that they will do. This is no abstract theory. It's a warning rooted in the fall of democracies in Nazi Germany, Soviet Russia, and beyond. Snyder argues that authoritarianism doesn't always arrive with tanks and trumpets. Often, it creeps in quietly, exploiting the complacency of citizens who assume their system is unbreakable. The book's structure is its genius. 20 short lessons, each a practical directive for resisting tyranny, backed by historical examples that make the stakes feel visceral. Let's dive into the most critical ones. Lesson 1, do not obey in advance, is a gut punch. Snyder explains how most of the power of authoritarianism is freely given. In 1938, Austrians anticipated Nazi demands and complied before being asked, paving the way for annexation. This anticipatory obedience is a trap Snyder sees in modern politics, where people conform to a leader's whims before they're even law. He urges us to question, to push back, to refuse to surrender our agency preemptively. Lesson 2, defend institutions, underscores that courts, media, and unions aren't self-sustaining. Institutions do not protect themselves, Snyder warns. He points to how Nazis dismantled German courts and Stalin crushed independent unions. Today, when leaders attack the press or judiciary, it's a red flag. Snyder's call is clear. Subscribe to newspapers, support NGOs, vote in local elections, small acts that bolster the scaffolding of democracy. Lesson 3, beware the one-party state, highlights how democracies die when one group monopolizes power. He cites the Reichstag fire of 1933, which Hitler used to suspend rights and consolidate control. Snyder's lesson, stay vigilant about electoral fairness and reject narratives that justify power grabs under emergency pretexts. One of the book's most haunting lessons is number 9, be kind to our language. Snyder draws on Victor Klemperer, a Jewish philologist who documented how Nazis twisted words to erode truth. The people became some, not all. Dissent was defamation. Snyder warns that cliched slogans and propaganda dull our thinking. Think up your own way of speaking, he advises, urging us to read books over scrolling social media to preserve independent thought. This ties to Lesson 10, believe in truth, where he declares, to abandon facts is to abandon freedom. When leaders peddle alternative facts, as seen in modern politics, it's a step toward what Snyder calls pre-fascism, where truth becomes whatever the powerful say it is. Snyder's lessons aren't just about spotting danger, they're about action. Lesson 11, investigate, pushes us to seek truth ourselves. Figure things out for yourself, he writes, advocating for long-form journalism over viral snippets. Lesson 12, make eye contact and small talk, feels deceptively simple but carries weight. In oppressive regimes, fear isolates people. Snyder recounts how Poles under communism built trust through small gestures, creating networks of resistance. These human connections, he argues, are the bedrock of a resilient society. The book's later lessons tackle the tipping point where tyranny accelerates. Lesson 17, listen for dangerous words, flags terms like extremism or emergency that authoritarians use to justify stripping rights. Snyder points to the Nazis' use of exception to suspend laws post-Reichstag fire. Lesson 18, be calm when the unthinkable arrives, is a masterclass in resilience. Modern tyranny is terror management, he writes, explaining how crises like terrorist attacks are exploited to dismantle checks and balances. His advice, stay steady, don't panic, and recognize the playbook. Snyder's final lessons are a rallying cry. Lesson 19, be a patriot. Contrast patriotism with nationalism. A patriot wants the nation to live up to its ideals, he writes, while nationalists obsess over resentment. Lesson 20, be as courageous as you can, is both sobering and inspiring. If none of us is prepared to die for freedom, then all of us will die under tyranny, he concludes. This isn't hyperbole, it's a nod to dissidents like Václav Havel, who lived in truth under Soviet oppression, showing that courage can start with small acts of defiance. What makes On Tyranny so gripping is Snyder's ability to weave history with urgency. He doesn't just recount the Holocaust or Stalin's purges, he shows how they began with choices. Citizens obeying too soon, institutions left undefended, truth eroded by lies. His examples, from Hitler's stormtroopers to Putin's propaganda, feel like mirrors held up to today's world. Critics like Richard Evans note the book's rushed feel, craving more depth. But its brevity is its strength, a manifesto you can slip into your pocket and carry into battle. Carlos Lozada calls it clarifying and unnerving, a work grounded in history yet imbued with the fierce urgency of what now. Snyder never names Trump explicitly, but the 2016 election looms large. He sees patterns, attacks on truth, demonization of minorities, calls for loyalty, that echo 20th century tyrants. Yet he's not fatalistic. History does not repeat, but it does instruct, he insists. The book's power lies in its dual role, a warning of how democracies die and a guide to keeping them alive. Whether it's voting with paper ballots, marching instead of tweeting, or simply talking to a neighbor, Snyder's lessons remind us that democracy isn't a spectator sport, it's a daily fight. As you watch the world unfold, On Tyranny feels like a compass. It's not about predicting doom, but about equipping you to act. Snyder's parting words linger, set a good example of what America means for the generations to come. They will need it. This is a book that doesn't just inform, it demands you stand up, look around, and choose to be the one who resists.